The Currie Johnny Joint 8-piece adjustable control arm set is for those of you that have a 1997 to 2006 TJ that are looking for a set of control arms that are going to be adjustable, very, very strong, hold up really well over time, and are going to give you a ton of articulation. These are going to be a fairly easy install. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3 wrenches because there's a little bit of disassembly and reassembly that you need to do. If you're installing these without installing a lift kit, you're only changing the control arms. You can really do one by one, and then you're really just doing 2 bolts per control arm. Pretty simple to do. But again, as usual, we're going to show you how to do that. Now, when you're buying control arms, you're going to find a couple of different styles out there. You're going to find fixed and adjustable. You're going to find some that are double adjustable. Some have a rubber style factory joint on one side and a spherical joint on the other side. So again, a lot of different options out there. And depending on what features you're looking at, you're going to pay a different price. What you're going to find here from Currie is going to be a set of control arms that are adjustable, and what that allows you to do is in the front and the back set the pinion angle, and in the front set the caster angle of the Jeep, and also center the axles underneath the wheel wells, so center them front to back, not left to right, front to back. That's important because as you lift the Jeep with a fixed set of factory control arms, you actually swing the axles closer toward the center line of the Jeep. So by having the adjustable ones, you can push them back into the wheel wells and also adjust the angles so you don't have any premature drive shaft wear. You're not going to have any vibrations. The steering wheel is going to want to center properly if you have the right caster angle. So a lot of different benefits to having an adjustable set of control arms. Now, these are also going to have spherical joints on not one, but both ends, and what that gives you is a ton of twisting motion, or the ability to have a ton of twisting motion. So when you disconnect that front sway bar and that front axle is articulating, you're not going to have any binding in the joints of the control arms all the way up to 30 degrees. So again, a ton of articulation that you're going to be able to get out of these. That's going to be a little bit different for ones that have a rubber bushing in one end and a spherical in the other. You're not going to get 30 degrees of articulation out of those. So that's something that's important to know. What you see here on the table is 4. I have 1 of each kind of control arm, so 1 lower, 1 upper in the rear, and 1 lower and upper in the front. Of course, you're going to get a full kit of 8, and as you might be able to tell, these, which are the lower control arms, are going to be the same for the front and for the back of the Jeep. So you've heard me say spherical joint, you've heard me say Johnny joint. What is the difference? What are the similarities? Well, a Johnny joint is Currie's specific version of this spherical joint, and what they've done is through engineering they've built something that's going to hold up and last a very long time while providing that 30 degrees of articulation and 30 degrees of essentially twist to give you maximum suspension performance. There are a lot of different spherical joints out there. There are some that are known to give you maybe a year, even with good maintenance, before they start to wear out and they'll make all kinds of noise, and you'll get shimmies and shakes and you can't align the Jeep and you have all sorts of issues, and you certainly don't want that. And then these, which are known to be some of the highest quality spherical joints out there, the Johnny joint by Currie, is designed to hold up incredibly well. So you are going to have grease fittings on all of these. You're going to want to make sure you keep them greased. In the event that something were to happen to one of these, because over a very long period of time you're going to get some normal wear. These all have snap rings. You can take them apart. You can replace pieces in there. They are going to be rebuildable. But again, as long as you grease these properly, these are going to take a ton of abuse before they start to wear out on you. Because of that, because you're getting quality here, and because you're getting something adjustable, you're going to pay a little bit more than some of the other options out there. These are going to be right around that $1,200 mark for a set of all 8. Now, if you do some really serious wheeling, you want something that's very strong, you want something that you know is going to last a long time, so you're not buying it again in a couple of years because the joints wore out, this is going to be an excellent option for you. You can find some that are non-adjustable, that are fixed length. You can find some that have rubber bushings in one end and spherical in the other. So there are ways to find less expensive sets of control arms, but if you're looking for ones that are going to give you a ton of articulation and a lot of life, this is going to be a great choice for you. So like we said before, fairly simple 2 out of 3 wrench installation. Let's show you how to do it.
Tools required for this install: tape measure, sockets ranging from 22mm down to 15, various extensions, 3/8 inch ratchet, 1/2 inch ratchet, soft mallet, flat screwdriver, pry bar, wrenches ranging from 15mm up to 22mm. Optional are the 1/8 inch and 1.5 inch. You can use an adjustable, as well as a 1/2 inch impact or 3/8 inch air ratchet.
All right, now what I'm going to do first is remove all the wheels off the Jeep to make the axles just a little bit lighter.
All right, now that I have the wheels and tires off the Jeep and I have the axle supported with pull jacks, you can use jack stands in your driveway. Just make sure your back wheels are chalked. I'm using a 21mm impact and a 21mm wrench, and I'm removing the lower control arm from the bottom, and then I'm going to go up to the top. All right, now we're on the top of the lower control arm on the passenger side. We are going to loosen and remove the bolt for this one. All right, now we're going to use a soft face mallet and tap our old bolt out. You may need to use a pry bar to get the joint out of here. All right, now I'm using a pry bar on the top. All right, now once we pull the bolt out of the top, we're going to pull the bolt and eccentric washer out of the bottom. Remove our lower control arm and bring it to the bench. All right, so this is an aftermarket lower control arm. Your factory one will look a little bit different, but what our goal here right now is to make sure that this new control arm is the same length, because they are a replacement. This is not a long arm kit. So I'm going to take a measurement from the middle to the middle of the bolt hole, and I'm getting 16.5. Now I'm going to go over to the new one and do the same thing. I'm reading about 16.25, so we have to extend this just a little bit. Another way you can do it is just line up your holes, and you can see that we need to go a little bit more. Now I'm going to take my measurement again from the center to over here, and I'm at 16.5. Now we're going to repeat this process for all of the control arms we're replacing. And the lock nut here is 1.5 inches. You can use an adjustable if you don't have a wrench that goes up that high. I'm just going to lock it into place a little bit there and do the final tighten on the Jeep. All right, now we're ready to install our new Currie control arm. I'm going to start at the top and swing it up, finding the bolt. I'm using the new hardware, and on the new hardware they have a Zerk fitting on the end so you can grease the bushings inside the control arm, which is very nice. All right, get that loosened up. Swing our lower portion up and in. Now I am reusing the factory eccentric bolt and washers. And now just by looking at it, I have to push the axle just a little bit more forward. And I made a line with the grease pen so I can get back to my factory-ish alignment. I would recommend getting alignment after you're done this install, just to make sure your Jeep is tracking true and straight. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up these bolt and nut. Now again, I gotta move my axle just a little bit forward. All right, now you can see I made a pass there. I'm going to move my eccentric washer while I can. Now it's pretty close to the mark. Again, I'm going to go and get an alignment after we're done. All right, now moving up to the top, we're going to tighten down the top of the control arm. Now that's good and tight. We're going to move on to our upper control arm. All right, now we're at our upper control arm on the passenger side. We're going to be using a 15mm socket on these bolts. I'm gonna remove this, slide it out of the way, and then move on to the bottom. All right, now that we're on the upper control arm that attaches the rear axle, we're going to remove this 15mm bolt. All right, again, these upper control arms are different from factory. These are aftermarket. These are the new Curry Johnny joints that we are replacing them with. And then we're gonna have to take another measurement from the center of this through hole to the center of that through hole and transfer it over to our new piece. Again, we're working from the center to the center of this. And I have about 15 3/4. This one I know is a little bit short, and we're at 15. So we gotta go about 3/4 of an inch. All right, I'm going to temporarily lock that down, take another measurement, and then we'll be ready to place it on the vehicle. All right, let's go get it on the Jeep. All right, now we're going to be placing our new control arm into the upper pocket. What I'm gonna do first is start my new hardware, just till I get about there. And I have a washer on the Zerk end. Bring the new one up. Now on the end there is a nice threaded spot for a Zerk fitting. We are going to install ours, and you can see the hole there, and that's where the grease comes out and helps grease those bushings. All right, now we are going to be reusing our factory hardware because these bushings are too thin for the supplied hardware. All right, we're gonna hit that with a 15mm ratchet. And we're gonna move up to the top and tighten up those. All right, now we're gonna tighten up this nut and the bolt. The nut is an 18 and the bolt head inside the frame here, the supplied hardware is a 16. All right, so now that we're done installing our upper and lower control arms, we want to lock them into place. I'm using an 1.5" wrench on this lock nut here. And I'm just going to give it a good tighten. And then don't forget to grease your Zerk fittings on the bottom and through the bolts. All right, now we're going to do the same thing to our upper control arm. Just tighten down this lock nut. This is an 1.125" as well. All right, all those steps we just completed, we're gonna do on the driver's side, and then we're gonna head to the rear. All right, now that we're all done with the front, we're gonna start on the back and remove the wheels and tires. All right, now at the back with the wheels and tires removed, you can take a look at our lower control arm. Again, these are not factory, but the Curry Johnny joints are an excellent replacement option. Now they are 21mm wrench and socket on the back side. I'm going to use an impact on the front. All right, that nut's out. I'm going to leave that in there and I'm going to work on the top one now. All right, now I'm going to use the same 21mm impact and wrench. All right, now I'm gonna back this bolt out with the impact. All right, now I'm gonna be using a ratchet strap to make sure my axle does not move. I'm gonna put it on the back of that shock perch. And then go to the frame right there. All right, I'm keeping an eye on my bolt hole there. I'm actually bringing it to me. And I should be able to slide this may need a pry bar or mallet. All right, now once you have your old control arm on the table and your new one side by side, we're gonna take measurements again and transfer those over to the new one. This one's sitting at right at 6.5 inches. This one's sitting at right at about 6.5 inches. I'm gonna do the same for our new one. Needs to be a little longer. 16.5 there. All right, we're gonna lock this down and we're gonna do our final lockdown on the Jeep itself. All right, now we're gonna install our new lower control arm on the rear using new hardware. I'm just gonna hand tighten this one for now so we can bring up our lower control. So we can bring the lower control arm to the rear. All right, now we're gonna slide our lower control arm into the bracket. Put our new hardware through. All right, now that we have, I switched the strap over just to get the right leverage, and I lowered the axle just a little bit. You will have to play with yours to get it to fit just right. All right, put our nut on there with the washer. It is a 22 on the nut end and a 21 on the bolt end. And tighten this down. All right, with the bottom tight, we're gonna tighten up the top of the control arm. That's the same deal, 22 millimeter nut on the back and a 21 bolt head. All right, now that we've buttoned up the lower control arm, you can repeat that on the driver's side. All right, now moving on to our upper control arm, we're gonna be using a 15 millimeter socket on the nut end and a 15 millimeter ratcheting wrench on the bolt end. All right, just remove the nut and keep the bolt through there. We're gonna work on removing the bolt on the top. All right, now with the same ratcheting 15 millimeter, I'm going to take off the top bolt for the upper control arm. All right, now I'm going to remove this bolt, slide that out of the way, and now you can remove your rear bolt. You may need a mallet on the bottom side of the control arm to get it out. Now let's take this to the bench and take our measurements. All right, now that we're on the table, we're gonna take our measurements of the old upper control arm in the rear, and we are sitting at about 14 3/8. Do the same over here. This one's coming in about 13 3/4. So we need to extend our Curry Johnny joint. To just like that. We're gonna lock this down when it's in the Jeep, just like the lower control arm. All right, now let's go get this installed. All right, now we're gonna take our Johnny joint and put it up into place. I'm gonna start at the upper control arm mount. I'm reusing the factory hardware. Make sure you put the lock tab on the inside correctly. And I'm gonna start that. As you can see, I have the thread started in that. All right, now I did use a screwdriver through that shaft just to make sure everything was lined up good. And now I'm gonna slip my bolt through. All right, now we're gonna start tightening up our upper control arm. Start by threading your nut on. All right, now we're gonna tighten up the top of the upper control arm. Same 15 millimeter. All right, now we are going to tighten up our lock nuts. Again, the big one is 1.5 inches. If you don't have 1.5 inches wrench, like most people don't, you can use a very large adjustable. All right. And everything you just saw here for the lower and upper control arm can be replicated and completed on the driver's side. All right, that's gonna wrap up my install of the Curry Johnny Joint 8-piece adjustable control arm set. And you can get yours right here at extremeterrain.com.